Our first primary source this week is going to be the Annals of Sennacherib. Now, Sennacherib was the king of the Assyrian Empire. So the Assyrians definitely get kind of an interesting reputation among historians. So let's take a look and see if they deserve it. All right, so the Assyrian dynasty it's located, its capital city is at Nineveh. It's still considered modern-day Iraq, but it's a little bit further upriver than Mesopotamia. So we're moving geographically outside of the area where civilization originated as human beings, as populations grow, human beings expand into other areas. Now, the Assyrians, some historians even refer to their type of government as a military monarchy. This is how closely associated they are with warfare and conquest. And Colin Ortega definitely jumps on this bandwagon. Now, under Sennacherib, the Assyrians actually expand across a good chunk of the Near East, and it's under his rule that we see them going from a kingdom to an empire. Well, let's ask a question. How do empires get created? Usually through war and conquest. Most of the time, you don't have somebody saying, well, okay, let's just all cooperate and join together and we're going to create an empire where everybody's equal. I don't know any situation where that's actually happened. If it did, that would be fantastic, but no. All right, so Sennacherib actually claims certain reasons why he's fighting. And what's really interesting is that he uses both religion and rebellion as a reason for why he's fighting. So in one part of the Annals of Sennacherib, he actually says that his god Ashur, who was the primary or chief god of the Assyrian sort of panel of gods, if you will, he says Ashur told him to go fight. Now, this is fascinating because modern scholars have for a long time tried to blame monotheism specifically for religiously based warfare. Scholars used to argue that, oh, no, it's only when people only had one god that they claimed, oh, yeah, God is telling me I have to fight you. Well, here we have the ancient Assyrians, we have Sennacherib. They are polytheists. They worship many gods. They're actually well known for when they conquer a people, they incorporate those gods into their own pantheon. So they're not telling you you can't worship your gods anymore, but they're telling you, yeah, sorry, we conquered you. You can still worship your gods, but you have to worship our gods too, especially Ashur. So the fact that Sennacherib is saying Ashur is telling me to go fight and go conquer this territory, that really changes how we view religiously based violence. Okay, he also claims that areas that had been under his control rebelled. And so he uses that as a reason to legitimize going in and conquering these territories. So why do historians see Sennacherib as particularly brutal? Well, let's look at some of these examples from the text. For example, he states that this one people who lived in tents, he burned all of their tents. But then he follows that up with, I built buildings and fortifications that were much better than what they had before. I'm not sure they would thank him for that, but this is his writing. The annals are his way of boasting about and publicizing, advertising, if you will, all of the things that he's done that he sees as important. Now, the excerpt that you've been given is mainly about war, but other parts of the Annals of Sennacherib do talk about building projects in his capital city of Nineveh. So let's get back to some of these war examples. You know, he says, I destroyed, I ravaged with fire. He talks about some of the really brutal things that he did to human beings. And every single time that he conquers another ruler's territory, it's I got all of his possessions, his family, his slaves, his workmen, gold, silver, jewels, what have you, horses, weapons. So war is violence, but it is also the movement of goods and people. So this leads us then to this question of what is the relationship between these great building projects? I mean, Nineveh under Sennacherib was just this phenomenal city. Really advanced architecture, engineering. It was amazing. So how is that connected to all of these wars? Well, how do you think these things get built? The use of slave labor and the use of forced labor. This doesn't mean that everyone who worked on these projects was forced or a slave, but that's definitely part of the mixture. Also, the use of what I'm putting in quotation marks there, claimed materials for buildings. And we see this throughout history. You go in, you conquer a territory, you tear down their buildings, and you use the materials to build your own. Well, for Sennacherib, again, he's going in, he's taking their gold, their silver, all of their stuff, and if it's a nice enough piece, he might keep it as is, but if not, he might melt it down and have his own craftsmen create something else. So we see this happening a lot throughout human history. So how do we, I mean, the Assyrians themselves, and especially in this Annals of Sennacherib, they don't really seem to have a problem with violence and brutality. This source shows us that at least for the people writing it, or at least for Sennacherib himself, that war, brutality, it's all seen as a positive. So how does that change over time, or does it?